My family had no clue I was making $55,000 a month. They threw me out of the house in a fury, yelling things like, "You selfish loser. You're no son of ours. Get out and don't bother coming back." After years of bankrolling their dreams, I finally walked away. But when they woke up the next morning, everything had changed, they just didn't know it yet. Since I was a kid, I'd been fascinated by computers. There was something magical about how a few lines of code could turn into a game, a tool, or something that just worked. After high school, I set my sights on a career in IT. I had this dream of building software that could actually help people. I'd spend hours locked in, tinkering and coding, totally absorbed in the logic of it all. But my family wasn't on board. My younger brother Ryan got accepted into some prestigious mechanical engineering college, and just like that, he became the star of the show. Mom and Dad couldn't stop bragging about how bright his future looked. Meanwhile, I was just the older sibling who liked messing around with computers. One evening, they sat me down in the living room and hit me with the cold truth. "This IT stuff you're into? It's a fantasy," Dad said sharply. "You're not cut out for that. It's a waste of time," he added. "Quit fooling around and get a real job. Ryan's future is what matters here." Mom just nodded, her expression icy. "He's going places. You're not." Hearing that was like taking a punch straight to the chest. I tried to defend myself. I told them I was serious about this path, that IT was my future. But they wouldn't hear it. "Ryan comes first," Dad snapped, shutting the door on the conversation. It stung, being seen as the lesser one. But I wasn't ready to walk away from my dream. I loved tech too much to let it go. So I made a decision. I picked up part-time work, bussing tables, fixing up old laptops in the neighborhood, anything that would bring in cash to help cover Ryan's tuition. They assumed I'd given up on my IT goals. In fact, they even praised me for doing the right thing. But what they didn't know was that every night, after work, I locked myself in my room and taught myself everything I could about coding. Free online classes, forums, trial and error, I was all in. I was on a mission to prove them wrong. I didn't need their belief in me, I just needed to show results. Even if I had to hide who I was becoming, I refused to let go of the dream. What started as a little secret slowly turned into a double life. By day, I was flipping burgers at the local diner or patching up old PCs for people like Mrs. Carter. That cash went straight to Ryan's college fund, and my parents thought I'd finally accepted my role as the family mule. Mom would smile and say, "Glad to see you pulling your weight," without the slightest idea of what I was really doing. But once the sun went down, I'd lock my bedroom door, crack open a cheap soda, and dive into a world they never saw. I found free tutorials on coding languages like Python and JavaScript, plus networking basics, and I soaked up everything I could. I still remember how my hands trembled the first time I built a working program, just a basic calculator app, but it was mine. It functioned. A few months in, I found a freelance website and pitched myself for a small job building a bakery's website. I undercharged, $1,200 for days of work, but when they paid me, it felt like I'd just won the lottery. I dumped the money into better software, online courses, and anything that could help me get better. Most nights, I ran on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, kept awake by caffeine and sheer drive. Then came the breakthrough. A startup hired me to fix bugs in their app. They liked my work enough to keep me on part-time. I kept grinding, building an inventory app for small businesses, releasing it online, watching as downloads trickled in. By the time Ryan was midway through his second year of college, I was quietly raking in $55,000 a month. No one in the house knew. Keeping it a secret wasn't easy. At dinner, I'd sit through Ryan's loud monologues about his engineering courses. "I'm gonna design engines that change the world," he'd say, and Mom's face would light up like he'd already done it. Dad would add, "That's our boy," while I just picked at my plate, biting back the urge to mention the contract I just signed, one worth more than a full semester of Ryan's tuition. It wasn't jealousy. Not really. It was more like the crushing feeling of being invisible. They'd ask how my day went, and I'd shrug, saying, same old, letting them think I was still barely scraping by. The diner gig became my cover story, and I stuck with it, even when I didn't need the income. But the toll added up. I was exhausted. There were nights when I stared blankly at the screen, my eyes burning, wondering what I was doing to myself. My back hurt from hours at the desk, and the headaches were constant. Meanwhile, Ryan would be downstairs, laughing with his friends, stress-free. And I'd be upstairs, tangled in code that wouldn't run, frustration building. Resentment started to creep in. Why was I the one keeping everything afloat? But then I'd wrap up a project, watch payments roll in, and feel that fire reignite. I wasn't just surviving. I was building something real. One day, a client emailed me, "Your app saved my business." That message stuck with me. Whenever I felt like quitting, I remembered it. Everything really took off during Ryan's third year. My app subscriptions exploded, and the startup I was working with offered me a full-time remote position. I quit the diner job and casually told my parents I'd found something more stable. They just nodded, assuming it was another low-level hustle. Truth was, I was pulling in over $16,000 a month. It felt unreal. I opened a separate bank account, bought a high-end laptop, and turned a corner of the basement into my workspace, all wires, monitors, and empty soda cans. I'd sit there, grinning at the numbers climbing on my screen. I didn't crave their approval anymore. I had the one thing they always doubted I'd earn, proof. But even with all that success, part of me still felt that sting. I used to catch Mom bragging about Ryan's report cards to every relative in sight, her voice practically glowing with pride. Meanwhile, I'd get a half-hearted, "So, how's work going?" like I was just some distant acquaintance. Part of me wanted to yell, "You have no idea who I really am." But I kept quiet. Maybe I was scared they'd ask for a piece of it, or worse, brush it off as dumb luck. So I swallowed it down and let that bitterness grow. Ryan would stroll around the house, going on about the workshop he wanted to open someday. I'd just smile and nod, all while knowing I could have bought the building for him 10 times over. But I wasn't ready to lay my cards on the table. I'd poured everything into what I'd built, my time, my energy, my soul, and there was no way I was letting them take credit for it. This was my win, and I was keeping it to myself. Ryan's graduation was a big event, at least to Mom and Dad. They went all out, rented a banquet hall, invited half the neighborhood, and plastered the place with banners shouting, "Congrats, Engineer Ryan." I stood in the back of the room, clapping while he strutted across the stage holding his diploma like a trophy. Mom was practically glowing with pride, her eyes full of tears. Dad kept patting Ryan's back like he'd just landed on the moon. "He's really going places," they kept saying, handing out slices of cake to a parade of nodding relatives. I got a few stiff smiles and a quick, "Thanks for helping out," from some aunt, like I was the guy they hired to carry chairs. It didn't cut like it used to. By then, I had carved out my own world, one that didn't need their approval, but yeah, it still left a bitter aftertaste. Later, when Ryan got a job at some garage fixing engines, the whole family lit up like he'd been offered a Nobel Prize. I figured my part was done. I'd paid the price already. Then came the dinner that flipped everything upside down. We were sitting around the kitchen table, Mom serving mashed potatoes like it was any other night, when Dad cleared his throat and got serious. "Ryan's got a plan," he said in that tone that meant I wasn't gonna like what came next. "He's starting his own mechanical shop. Wants to be his own boss. We need you to kick in 20 grand to help him get it off the ground." I froze mid-bite, my fork hanging in the air. "Wait, what?" I asked, thinking maybe I'd misheard. Mom jumped in fast, like they'd rehearsed this. "After all he's done, you owe him. He's the future of this family. You should want to support that. My stomach dropped. I'd already drained myself paying for Ryan's schooling, working insane hours while they cheered him on like he was the second coming, and now they wanted more. Just like that, 20 grand. I slowly set my fork down, my hands starting to shake. That's a lot of money, I said as calmly as I could. I don't have that kind of cash lying around. It was a straight-up lie. I could have cut that check in my sleep, but there was no way I was letting them know that. Dad's jaw tightened. You've had a job for years. Don't be selfish, he snapped. Ryan's earned this. Ryan leaned back in his chair, flashing a cocky grin. Come on, bro. It's not like you're working on anything major. Just help me out. That smug attitude lit something in me. I'd been their quiet little money machine, and somehow they still saw me as nothing. No, I said, louder than I meant to. I'm not doing it. This isn't reasonable. You can't just decide I owe you because you want something. The room went dead silent for a beat, then chaos. Dad slammed his palm on the table. You selfish little, after all we've done for you. Mom's voice jumped an octave, sharp and shrill. Ryan's actually building something. What are you doing with your life? Ryan sat there, arms folded, still smirking like he was enjoying the show. Guess some people just can't handle seeing someone else succeed, he said, with that arrogant little shrug. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Success. I was pulling in $55,000 a month, running a business they didn't even know existed, while Ryan played with wrenches in a garage. But I kept it in. They didn't deserve to know, not yet. You just don't get it, I said as I pushed back from the table. I've got my own life. My own responsibilities. I'm not your ATM. My voice was shaking, but not from fear, pure rage. I'd busted my ass for years, never once asked for thanks, and this was the reward. Dad pointed a finger right at me, his eyes lit up with fury. You've always been a disappointment. Mom nodded beside him, like it was the truth written in stone. If you won't help your brother, she said, her voice cold, then you're no son of mine. Ryan just watched it all unfold like he'd won some kind of sick prize. I could have dropped the truth right there, told them everything about my income, my company, the apps I'd built, but I held back. I knew how it would go. They'd guilt me, demand more, maybe even try to control it. I'd seen that pattern before. So instead, I stood tall, heart pounding like a drum. All right then. I'm out. Figure it out yourselves, I said. Dad's face turned bright red. Oh, you think you're too good for us now, he barked. We'll see where that attitude gets you. Mom started crying, but it felt fake, like she was trying to sell it to a camera. Ryan gave another shrug. You're lost, man. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, their voices trailing off behind me. Same old guilt trips, the same tired noise. I'd spent years proving myself, not to them, but to me. And there was no way I was letting them cash in on something they never believed in. They thought I was broke, aimless, a complete failure. Let them think it. I knew the truth, and that was enough, for now. But deep down, I could feel it coming. The day this whole fake narrative would blow up. And the fallout came quicker than I imagined. Just a week after I said no to the 20 grand, Mom called me into the living room for a family meeting. I knew it was a setup the second I saw Ryan sprawled out on the couch with his arms folded and Dad pacing the floor like a ticking bomb. We've made a decision, Dad said, his voice tight like a drawn bowstring. You're either with us, or you're against us. I sat down, ready for the ambush. Ryan jumped in first, his tone smug and full of venom. You've been working for how long now? And what do you even have to show for it? Nothing. Selfish as hell. Keeping everything to yourself while I'm just trying to get my life started. That's what he said, like I hadn't carried this whole family on my back for years. His words didn't hurt because they were true, they hurt because they were so completely wrong. I was the one holding them up all this time, and now Ryan was painting me as some kind of villain. Mom jumped in too, her voice shaking like she was auditioning for a soap opera. We raised you better than this. Ryan's your brother, he needs you, and you're walking away. I was ready to speak up, to defend myself, but Dad didn't let me. That's enough, he shouted, voice booming through the kitchen. You're out. Grab your stuff and get the hell out of this house. You're not part of this family anymore. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Out. Just like that. Before I could even gather my thoughts, he stormed off upstairs. A minute later, he came back down dragging my old duffel bag, hurling my clothes onto the front lawn like garbage. Mom followed behind, muttering, "You did this to yourself." Ryan stood by the door, watching it all unfold, wearing that same smug look like he'd just scored the winning goal. I stepped outside, stunned, while the neighbors peeked through their blinds, pretending not to see. My stuff lay scattered in the grass. I felt humiliation burn through me, but I didn't beg. Not even once. I wasn't giving them the satisfaction. Later, I heard Mom had gone full damage control. She'd called up Aunt Brenda, crying and telling her I'd stolen money meant for Ryan's college fund and blown it on myself. Total fabrication. I never touched a penny that wasn't mine. But like wildfire, the story spread. Texts rolled in from cousins, "How could you do that?" I didn't reply. No point. They'd already chosen their version of the story. Still, it cut deep. After everything I'd given up, she'd gone and painted me as a thief to cover their shame. I sat on the curb, duffel bag beside me, playing everything over in my mind, the family meeting, the eviction, the lies. It was too much to take in. My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. It wasn't just the money they wanted, they were trying to erase me completely. And I could have ended it all right then. I could have shouted to every neighbor within earshot that I was making $55,000 a month, running a legit business, supporting the very brother they worshipped. But why? What would that change? They'd still see me as a resource, not a person. That fury that started as heat in my chest turned cold and solid. I wasn't crushed, I was done. They could keep their house, their approval, their twisted version of loyalty. I had something they couldn't take, my freedom, my business, my skills. I threw the duffel over my shoulder and walked away. The streetlights buzzed quietly as I made my way to a cheap motel a few blocks down. I figured I'd figure out the rest in the morning. Find a place. Keep coding. Keep moving forward. That night, lying in a scratchy motel bed with springs poking my back, I stared up at the ceiling. My phone lit up with a message from Ryan. "Good riddance, loser." I didn't even blink. Just deleted it and went back to staring at the cracks above me. They thought they'd broken me. They were dead wrong. I wasn't the failure here. They were the ones still clinging to the illusion that Ryan was some rising star, when all along he'd been riding on my shoulders. I kept quiet about my success to protect it from their greed, but now, it was my armor. I didn't need their house. I didn't need their name. I had clients who trusted me, skills I'd earned, and apps they'd never even understand. The betrayal cut deep, Mom's lies, Dad's anger, Ryan's smug grin, but beneath all that pain, something else sparked. A fire. I wasn't just walking away from them, I was walking towards something real. Something mine. They'd realize it one day, but by then, it'd be too late. I closed my eyes, drained but alive, and made myself a promise right then and there: they don't get to hold me anymore. The motel wasn't home. It was a pit stop. Within a week, I signed a lease on a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just a modest one-bedroom with a sturdy desk, my laptop, and a window that looked out over the city skyline. That was all I needed. Thanks to my savings, I didn't have to worry about scraping by. I wasn't the disaster they were probably hoping I'd become. Friends from my freelancing days started reaching out when word got around. Some dropped by with coffee, others with second-hand furniture. Frank showed up hauling in a chair and cracked a joke. "Heard you had a blowout with the folks. You good?" I nodded, honestly grateful. It felt good, just having a normal conversation, no drama, no lectures, no guilt. There was peace in that apartment. No screaming matches, no guilt trips. Just quiet. Space. Rion to breathe. I buried myself in work, coding deep into the night. The app numbers kept rising, subscribers stacking up one by one. The freedom was intoxicating. Like shedding a skin I'd been stuck in for way too long. Then, months later, they came crawling back. I was mid-bite into some late-night takeout when the buzzer rang. I answered through the intercom, and Mom's voice came through, weak and crackly. "We need to talk." I buzzed them in. Mom and Ryan shuffled in, awkward and out of place. Mom clutched her purse like it was her lifeline. Ryan slouched, like a kid who just got caught sneaking in past curfew. Ryan's workshop failed, Mom blurted out. "Everything's gone. He lost it all in 2 months. We're behind on bills," she added quickly. "Please, help us." Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the apartment, probably wondering how I could afford any of it. Ryan chimed in, half mumbling. "Yeah, man, we're family. You gotta step up." I leaned back on the couch, arms crossed. The audacity almost made me laugh. "You disowned me," I said, calm but firm. "Why would I care now?" Mom's face twisted like she'd just been slapped. But I felt nothing. "We were angry," she said, like that excused everything. "But we're in trouble now." Ryan avoided my eyes, saying nothing. That's when I let the truth out. "I've been making $55,000 a month," I said, watching their faces. "Running my own business. Apps. Clients. I supported all of you for years. And what did I get? Kicked to the curb." Their mouths hung open, stunned silent. Mom fumbled for words. "What? You never told us." I cut her off. "Why would I? You'd have demanded every last cent." Ryan's eyes went wide, like he was suddenly seeing me in a whole new light. $55,000. You were making that and kept it secret?" His voice turned sharp, full of blame, and that lit a fire in my chest. That's when I got the full picture. Frank told me he'd heard it through someone we both knew. Apparently, before I moved out, Ryan had crept into the basement and smashed my old laptop. The same one I used to code my very first app. He'd called it worthless, bragged about breaking it like it was some kind of trophy. Finding that out, months later, hit me like getting sucker punched. That laptop wasn't just a piece of tech. It was where everything started for me. The place I proved, if only to myself, that I had what it took to make this work. He destroyed that out of spite. And now they thought I should still help them. I stood, my voice shaking with anger. "You broke my laptop, Ryan. The one I built everything on. And you seriously think I owe you a thing?" He shrank back, guilt flickering across his face. "I didn't think it was a big deal," he muttered. Mom jumped in like she always did. He was angry. "You can't hold that over him." But I could. And I absolutely did. "I'm done," I said, pointing toward the door. "This is your mess. You clean it up." Mom's tone shifted fast, from pleading to cutting. "You're heartless. We're your family." Ryan just sneered. "You're hoarding all that money." "Figures. I didn't even blink. I earned every dime. You don't get a piece of it." They thought I'd fold. Thought I'd fall back into my old role, reliable, obedient, always there when they needed me. But I wasn't that guy anymore. After years of holding them up, they'd repaid me with a shattered laptop and a front lawn full of my boxed-up life. "Get out," I said coldly. Mom gave a huff of disbelief. Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled. I sank back into my chair, staring at the takeout box on the table. And just like that, the weight started to lift. They hadn't come because they missed me. They came crawling back because they were strapped for cash. Smashing the laptop? That wasn't just some childish outburst. That was personal. A last little stab to erase everything I'd worked for. But they couldn't undo what I'd built. My apps were still running. My clients were satisfied. And that money in my account? All mine. I didn't need their approval. I didn't even need their apology. I'd weathered their storm and made it through. Now they were the ones left sinking. I picked up my phone and texted Frank, "They're gone. Beer later?" He replied fast, "Hell yeah." I smiled. This was my life now. No more guilt. No more chains. Just me and the code I'd poured my soul into. But of course, they didn't give up that easy. A month after I threw them out, my buzzer rang. I groaned, thinking it was a package or food delivery. But nope, there they were, on the intercom. Mom's voice tight, demanding. "We're coming up. This isn't finished." I let them in. Not because I missed them. I was just curious what kind of nonsense they were about to throw at me now. They walked in like they owned the place. Mom clutching a balled-up tissue, Ryan looking like he wished he were anywhere else. Mom sat down, stiff as a board. "We've been thinking," she began. "You're still our son. Ryan's still your brother. Come home," she said. "Let's figure this out." Ryan nodded, barely trying. "Yeah, man. We can work through this." I leaned back against the wall, arms folded, just waiting for the real reason they'd shown up. Didn't take long. "Ryan's trying to get back on track," Mom said, eyes pleading again. "But we're in a tight spot. Just a little help to get us through." There it was. Wrapped in fake smiles and forced forgiveness. Same old game. I shook my head slowly. "You don't get it. You kicked me out. Lied about me. And now you're only here because you're broke." Ryan's face turned red. "I screwed up, okay? I leaned on you too much. I'm sorry." The apology sounded like he'd rehearsed it on the drive over. It didn't land. Mom added her piece. "We all made mistakes. Can't we move on?" For a second, I almost bought it, until I remembered the laptop. "You smashed my first laptop," I said, locking eyes with Ryan. "The one that started everything for me." "Why?" He looked away, searching Mom's face for an excuse. "I was pissed, all right. You were always down there, acting like you were better than us." Mom tried to dismiss it. "It was just a thing. He didn't mean anything by it." But I saw through that. He meant every second of it. Every lie. Every swing. I turned to Mom. "And telling people I stole from Ryan, that was just a thing too." She stiffened. I was upset. "You wouldn't help." I looked bad. That right there lit something in me. "No," I snapped. "You looked bad because of your own choices. Not mine. I'm not your damn ATM." The room exploded. Ryan shot to his feet, voice raised. "You think you're better than us just because you've got money now?" Dad barked, his face twisted with resentment. Then Mom chimed in, piling on like she always did. "We raised you. You owe us every bite of food, every night under our roof." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "I paid for Ryan's college," I said, voice calm but cold. I kept this family afloat while you cheered him on and tore me down. I don't owe you a damn thing. Ryan stepped toward me, jabbing the air with his finger like that was supposed to scare me. You're a selfish piece of crap, he shouted. Mom broke into dramatic sobs. How can you turn your back on us like this, she wailed. It was pure chaos. Yelling, blaming, the same tired guilt trips I'd heard my whole life. But this time, I was done playing along. Take your drama back to your house, I said, stepping between them. You're standing in my home now, and you're way too loud. My voice didn't rise, but it cut through all the noise like a blade. They went quiet. Mom's tears stopped on cue. Ryan's hands dropped to his sides. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. We'll change. I swear. No more pushing. Just, let us in. Ryan jumped on the bandwagon. I'll get a job, man. I'm serious this time. No more crap. Their faces begged me to give them another shot. But I'd been here before. Heard every promise, every fake vow to turn things around. I knew how this story ended. I don't believe you, I said, flat and firm. You've got nothing left to hold over me. It's time to go. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Mom's shoulders sank. Ryan stared at his shoes. They were out of moves, and they knew it. I walked over to the door and opened it wide. Out. They didn't argue. Just shuffled past me, heads down, not saying a word. The door clicked shut behind them, and suddenly the quiet wrapped around me like a blanket. I dropped onto the couch, eyes locked on the space they'd just stood in. No rage. No sadness. Just, relief. They'd tried one last time to pull me back under, and I hadn't budged. I reached for my phone and blocked their numbers, one after the other. No more calls. No more guilt-soaked texts. This wasn't some big emotional showdown, it was a clean break. The kind that sticks. My life. It was mine now. Untouchable. I'd fought for this peace. I wasn't giving it up. After that day, my apartment became something it had never been before, a sanctuary. No more buzzing intercoms. No more ghosts from the past sneaking through the cracks. I threw myself into my work. Kept refining my app, pushing it out to more people. Watching the numbers tick up was like breathing in fresh air. Outside, the city pulsed with life, and for the first time, I felt like I was part of it. Present. Free. One night at a tech meetup, I ran into Megan, a graphic designer with a quick wit and a sharp eye. We hit it off over coffee, bouncing ideas back and forth about UI and back-end systems. She didn't know anything about my family. She didn't need to. She saw me. The guy I'd become. Not the guy they tried to bury. We started hanging out. No pressure, no games. Just simple, honest moments that started healing things I didn't even realize were still bruised. A few months later, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Sorry for everything. Got a job at a factory. Mom's still pissed, says it's all your fault. Can we talk? I read it. Felt nothing. No anger. No urge to reply. Just, nothing. He'd leaned on me his whole life, but I wasn't his crutch anymore. I blocked his number too, just like I'd done with Mom's. Things with Megan weren't anything official, but having her around brought a calm I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't trading that peace for their chaos. Not again. If this whole ordeal taught me anything, it's this: your value doesn't come from what others think of you. It comes from what you build. From the fight you put into making something real for yourself. My family treated me like a wallet, like some backup plan to prop up their golden boy. But I learned the difference between helping and being used. Sacrifice is noble when you choose it. But when it's forced on you through guilt and manipulation, it's not love, it's control. Walking away from them? That wasn't weakness. That was strength. Real strength. People will always see you through their own broken lens, but what really matters is what you see. Your grit. Your truth. That's what counts. I coded my way out of their shadow. Proved I didn't need their approval or their name. They're the ones stuck now, stuck with the regret. Not me. The takeaway? Don't let anyone guilt you into carrying their baggage. Cut the cord. Guard your peace. Build your own world. That's not selfish, it's survival. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it hit home for some of you. Maybe gave you that nudge to stand your ground.